How does Glen Van Peski, owner of Gossamer Gear, carry a 13-pound pack? And that's 13 pounds total pack weight, not base weight. Glen will share his unorthodox strategies for how he gets his pack lighter than yours and mine. Welcome to the Backpacking Blisters podcast, brought to you by Lighten Equipment. Lighten your load with the best ultralight gear at lightenequipment.com. With me today is the owner of Gossamer Gear, an engineer, a backpacker, a bread maker, and a proud dishwasher, Glen Van Peski. How's it going today, sir?
Doing great. Happy to be on the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Okay, so I'm gonna jump right in. I was kind of digging into a lot of information you put out there on your website. It says only 4 people in the world know what your trail name G squared means. So why is this a secret?
Like many trail names, it's a little embarrassing. Probably not for the reason that most people will assume.
Okay.
But so for that reason, I don't, it's easy because people assume it stands for Gossamer Gear, which it doesn't. And actually,
Okay.
the guy who gave it to me, John Mackey, has since forgotten what it means.
What?
Yeah, it used to be 5 living people knew what it was. Now it's only 4.
And you're not going to tell him?
No, I didn't tell him.
Okay. He's like, what does that mean again? You're like, you came up with that. You can't remember, too bad.
Yeah. No. So got to keep the circle small. Yeah.
So if someone were to like figure it out or guess it, would you tell them if they were right?
Well, we had that problem. I was actually hiking with Mackie when this came up, and a super smart guy was on the hike, not your typical backpacker. And he goes, "Oh, blah, blah." And it's like, dang, it's like he just figured, like, just out of the blue like that. So yeah, he became number 4.
Okay. So you did tell him. All right. So
yeah. But typically, like if people want to start guessing, it's like, no, I'm not going to, especially if it's in a group, because especially if it's on a podcast,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you don't have to tell me. I guess, I don't know if I'd be right or not. I did have a guess. I was like, well, obviously G for Glen. And I was like, well, G squared. There's something about you, maybe when you're on the trail, that you have just this presence about you, this strong personality that people gravitate towards, that it's just having like 2 people. Like you are the equivalent of 2 folks out on the trail. 2 Glens.
That's a good guess, but I'm an engineer. Let's face it, strong personality is probably not something people are going to attribute to me. I will tell you that Glen is not one of the G's. So,
okay. All right. Well, eliminate that then. I had to guess. Okay. We're going to get into, on this episode, like kind of the theme of the episode is like some of your unorthodox, maybe genius ultralight strategies. One thing, before we get into like your ideas, one thing that you came up with that I have to ask about is this thing right here. This is like for those who are just listening, this is a circular pad. It looks like it's been cut from some sort of foam pad, like a sleeping pad. It's a circle. It looks like it's about 4 inches in diameter. If you didn't explain this and I had to tell somebody what this was for, it looks like it would be the ultralight of ultralight sit pads for one butt cheek. That would be my prediction, but it's not for that. So what is this all about?
So that's the GVP donut. I sleep with a very minimal pad, a 3/8 inch foam torso pad. And what makes that work is getting good at digging the GVP divot, which is basically contouring the ground to fit your body. The donut helps because, I have a thin foam pad, but when you lie on the ground, most of the pressure is concentrated on a couple points. If you're on your back, your tailbone is going to get more pressure than the rest of it. That's what's going to start to hurt. Uh-huh. And then if you're on a side, then your hip bone is the main point of contact. So with the donut, you can throw that in your sleeping bag and switch it around as you turn so that you get a double layer of foam where it counts without having to carry twice the weight of sleeping pad.
So you don't use inflatable. You're using the thin foam pad that, like, I used that when I was in my 20s, but then as I got older, I was like, I can't do that anymore. And you're still doing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. What makes it work is getting good at making a divot.
Okay.
Because if you in the studio there, you lay down on the floor I mean, first you'd notice your pressure point, probably your tailbone, but after a while, what you would notice is the small of your back would hurt, assuming you're on your
Okay.
back, because it's
Right.
unsupported. The ground is level and our spines have curves to them. So there's two
Right.
ways to take care of that. One is to get a big inflatable pad that will kind of take up the difference. The other is to change the ground so that it matches the curve of your spine. And
Right.
when people don't believe this. You're humoring me. I can tell by the look on your face. But I was
I'm in. I have a response though, but I'm saving it. Go ahead.
So I was doing a workshop recently for a local group of women who explore, and we're down at State Park, and I'm explaining this to them. We're going through my gear, and they're looking at me skeptical, like, "Yeah, you're an idiot." But I said, "Well, hey, let's just check it out." So I put a ground sheet down. I made a little divot. I wish I had when rolling video, the looks on their faces when they lay down. They're like, "This is amazing." So like 3 of them decided right then to ditch their inflatable pads. It's like,
Really?
yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it's all about the setup. I will say, and I didn't go into, I mean, like not even close to what you just described, but we did an episode recently about for beginning backpackers, buy this gear. And I mentioned the foam pad, like, is it for an entry level backpacker? Like, that's something that maybe you should try entry level, because that's what I tried.
Yeah.
And I got a ton of feedback saying like, what in the world are you talking about? One person suggested a pad that essentially had no R value, which I think is a horrible mistake. The foam pads do have the R value. My thought on this thing is just that my theory behind what you were going to say was that you just happen to be one of those sleepers where you aren't moving around a ton at night, and so you can just set it and forget it basically. But for me, I'm like always shuffling around. So I would have to be, as I'm shuffling, I would have to move this with me. Is that how you do it?
Yeah. So I'll be 68 this year, and I flop constantly all night from back to one side, back to the other side.
Right.
It's every couple hours usually. And so it's easy for me. See, I'm already used to taking extra care when I turn because my sleeping bag has no down in the bottom. And so when I turn, I have to grab one seam and turn inside the bag so that I keep the non-down portion in the downward position. So it's easy for me to grab the donut and switch it around at the same time.
That's just a taste of some of the unorthodox ultralight ideas that Glenn might have. So we'll get to more of those. Our Bible verse of the episode is from your website, John 13:34. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. So everybody that I've met that knows you speaks highly of you. So what do you mean when you say that? I think you put on your website that you've got a long way to go toward this commandment. What's the struggle here?
The hard part is, as I have loved you. And it's Jesus talking. He didn't say, hey, be a nice guy and be generous to people. He went to the cross, gave his life for people who were his enemies. In that perspective, any good I've done and generosity that I've exhibited is, one, it's not from me. It's the indwelling of the Holy Spirit working through me. But as far as sacrificing my life for others, it's like, I'm pretty far down on that list.
Yeah, especially for enemies like those road ragers out there, maybe like that'd be a tough sell.
Yeah.
All right. Well, appreciate you sharing. Moving on to getting into the backpacking stuff here. So Gossamer Gear recently came out with a revolutionary pack that you can't keep on the shelves called the Mirage. So what makes this so special?
And I didn't really have anything to do with the design of this, so I can't take any credit for it. It starts with the material. It's just super strong material. It's monopolymer, so it's not 2 different layers of materials that are bonded that can delam and stuff like that. 100% polyester, so that makes it easier to recycle in terms of the life cycle of the product. But there's no adhesives or coating. It allows us to weld it. So part of it's the materials, part of it's the construction. So we've done a lot of heat welding, which creates a waterproof seam instead of traditional sewing, which creates a line of small holes in your fabric.
Okay.
And that makes it stronger, so you can get the strength with the lighter material. And then the design of the pack itself, it's a framed pack for basically a little over a pound. It's got a carbon fiber frame. It's adjustable, so it's one size, but
that's the impressive part, is that you can do all that with an adjustable pack.
And also you can dial in allows you to dial in the fit. Yeah, it's a nice pack.
And this is the pack that you're currently backpacking with, right?
No, it's too heavy for me.
Wait a second. You just said it's like what is it? A little over a pound, and that's too heavy. You're saying?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got the Alula Murmur. The new Murmur is out of the same fabric. So it doesn't have a frame, which I don't need because I'm not carrying that much weight. Doesn't have a waist belt. I mean, you could add one, but I usually don't.
Wait, what's your total pack weight? So that includes like not your base weight, but with consumables. If you're going in the mountains and let's say that, water, you're not doing like a long water carry. Let's say you're going like on a 4-day backpacking trip. What would be like ballpark your total pack weight?
I'm probably leaving the trailhead with 12, 13 pounds,
Wow.
including food and water.
That's impressive. That's like it's like day pack basically. Looks like you're just day hiking out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. So like Gossamer Gear, I feel like is known for just like innovative gear, possibly some things like unexpected gear. And so whether it's things that you've released or maybe you've decided not to release, what's one of the strangest pieces of gear that you've ever helped develop or been a part of or suggested?
Well, the crotch pot would probably be part of that. We used to do a hike for the early ultralight guys, Brian Frankel of ULA, Henry Shires Tarp Tent, Ron Moak, 6 Moon Designs, and myself.
Oh,
We'd
wow.
go on a trip together.
Okay.
We were on this trip. Trash talking, as you can imagine, especially from Ron Moak, is considerable on a hike.
Like gear trash talking, like my gear's better than yours.
Yeah. And somehow we're talking about no cook and body heat or something, and how you could just like put your food in your crotch and heat it up. And I thought like, well, no time like the present to check that out, So I put some water in my dinner in my Ziploc bag and slipped it in my pants and kind of folded the Ziploc over my waistband to kind of hold it in place.
Yeah, you don't want leakage.
Well, that's the problem. So I hiked for a while and it was, not super comfortable hiking with it. And then I went to pull it out and the top of the thing started to pull off. So I almost had a very bad accident. I worked after that to develop an actual product that you could put your food into. It works. I mean, if you're in your sleeping bag at night and it's cold and maybe a little colder in your sleeping bag and your hands are cold, what do you do with them? You either put them in your armpits or put them in your crotch, your waist or something to warm them up. That's the warmest part of your body. So it just makes sense to harness that heat to warm up your food.
I mean, that's like a legendary product from Gossamer Gear for sure. So I met with your crew. They were at the at like a Denver media show last month, and so I had the privilege of meeting with a couple of your guys. They were just really good guys. And so I was like, well, you got the donut, you got the crotch pot. Kind of one of the running things on our show is that I typically like to pitch ideas to companies, and so I pitched an idea that I've had out there for a while, and they were not impressed with that. So I got one later on in the show. I got a new one, not one that I pitched to them. I pitched them the tent catheter, where you got to go to the bathroom. You're in your tent. You don't want to get out of your tent, and it's basically just like a reservoir with a long hose. That way you can just kind of stay in your tent and send it through the little zipper hole there. They didn't think it was ultralight enough. Was their feedback?
Yeah, so the actually I was hiking. It's kind of the same idea. I was hiking in Iceland and it's like super windy. So you get to the hut and they've got these kind of rock walls that you pitch your tent in. And I was using our Whisper tent. Okay. And it has the floor is separate. You lay a piece of polycryo in for the floor. And one of the advantages of that was in the middle of the night and the wind is howling and it's cold, with my prostate, I'm not going to go through the night without going to the bathroom. You can just roll over, kind of lift the net up and like pee out the edge of the tent. And so it's kind of like your idea without the extra gear. Yeah.
Yours is the ultralight version.
And another one, I just got a final notification of the patent yesterday on the chopstick. So it's a tent stake that you can use as chopstick. So you don't need to take an eating utensil.
Okay. So you eat first and then you use that chopstick as a stake for your tent afterwards.
Right.
Okay.
Or, most tents, if you got multiple stakes, like You can probably still stand up and might flap a little without two of the stakes. So you just have to be strategic. Yeah.
Okay, like maybe
Yeah.
the rain fly or whatever. Okay. All right. There you go. Okay, that's like breaking news right there. I like that. The chop steak. All right, I've got an official one that I'm gonna that I'll present to you here in a little bit.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
But first, let's get to it. So can you give us your top 3 or 4 ultralight strategies that some folks might consider unorthodox?
One thing I've done in Sierra, which is not intuitive, most people kind of traditional backpacking, you get up, have breakfast or some coffee in the morning, and then you pack up and start hiking and hike all day and then get into camp and set up camp and then have dinner and sit around in the dark and then go to sleep. And the problem with this is you need to carry clothing for sitting around in the cold that you can't really, it's probably too warm to use when you're actually hiking and generating heat. So
Right.
to keep the weight down, I don't have layers like that. And I generally will get up and start walking, throw a food bar in my pocket or something and some chocolate covered espresso beans instead of coffee, because that's like a
Okay.
cup of coffee that you can drink while you walk. So you're miles in. Because when you're walking, you're generating heat. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed this, like as long as you're walking, you can stay warm in pretty cool temperatures.
Yeah, I'm good. Like I get cold very easily, and so but I'm great. If I'm
Yeah.
moving, I'm good. It's just the standing around or sitting around that kills
Right.
me,
And
like you're
so,
saying.
in the morning, it's like I will start walking immediately because that's what makes me warm. And then when the sun
Right.
comes up and you got a nice vista or whatever, you get some water. If you want to stop and have breakfast, then that's the time to do it. Break it up and turns it
Right.
into a break too. It's a break in the walking rather than like waste your morning
Okay.
sitting around being cold, getting chilly.
Well, what about at nighttime? So at that point, like you're not going to be like, okay, I'm done with the day. I've been walking all day. Now I'm going to walk around to keep warm. So you're either going to be in your tent, or you're going to, if like what I mean, even on that Tahoe rim trail you're referencing, I assume there's some hangout time there in camp. So what do you do for that?
This is the unorthodox part. A lot of times I prefer to have dinner at 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Okay.
If some of your gear is damp from the condensation the night before, the sun's usually still out, so you can spread your gear out a little bit. It's nice and warm out, so you're not sitting around shivering. You can make your dinner and then pack up and hike on. And sometimes those are the easiest miles. You're full from
Okay.
dinner, so you're full of energy. It's starting to get dusk, so sometimes the wildlife's starting to come out. You can see some cool animals. And then when you get into camp, you basically just have to set up a shelter and go to bed. Yeah, so you're still warm from walking, and you don't need those heavy layers for sitting around in camp.
I usually, that's fair. We do have a lot of sit around camp time. And if there's no fire bans, we do the campfire. But I'll typically like use my sleeping bag or my quilt as a blanket just to like hang out with. Hard to do that around the campfire because you might get some sparks and things that like could wreck that thing. But
Well, and one thing I've done is have my rain jacket size it up to like an XL or XXL, so that I can drape my sleeping bag around me and then put the
okay,
jacket over it. So it's not all
yeah,
flopping around, getting dirty.
that's smart. All right, so you kind of built a couple in there with unorthodox ways to kind of stay warm. Early morning is skipping breakfast, and then in the evening have an early dinner, and then once you get to camp, you just crash out. So that way you don't have to have extra clothing. So that's a good one.
I had an old presentation I did on lightening up. I said at some point, you have to consider the amount of money you're spending to lighten your load. Because if you have to buy new gear, well, that costs money. And some of the, ultra light gear can be pretty expensive. And so
Correct.
I had an example slide of, if you buy a new sleeping bag and it's $400 to, lose 6 ounces. Well,
Oh yeah.
that's pretty expensive way to lose weight. At the time, we were selling the G4 pack for $70. So, if you could go from a 4-pound pack to a 1-pound pack for $70, well, that was a good dollars per ounce. I would say I've been accused of spending the most money to lose weight when I had laser surgery, so
There
I
it
didn't have
is.
to carry contact lens fluid. Because fluid's fluid's heavy. So, yeah, that contact lens solution is adds up.
So you got okay. Just to clarify, so you got LASIK surgery to reduce your pack weight.
Well, that was definitely a
Okay.
factor. I mean, it was, yeah.
All right.
I mean, well, plus, I mean, if you backpack with contacts, I mean, it's a mess. I mean, it's
Well, yeah, it's dirty, and I've had multiple folks say that I've had people say they've lost their fluid, or they, something like a branch gets them in the eye and it like knocks their contact out or something like that, and then they're kind of hiking blind or relatively blind for the rest of the hike, and so yeah, it's a complexity that it sounds like you've reduced as well.
yeah, you reduce complexity, number of moving parts. Yeah, I would say, I mean, I had LASIK a long time ago. And I would say next to getting married, it's the most life enhancing
Wow.
thing I've
Okay.
done.
Wow. All right. There you go. Okay, I'm gonna run one of my ideas by you, and this is probably gonna based on like your unorthodox ideas. This is probably gonna sound Captain Obvious, and you've probably been doing this for years. This is new to me, and I actually weighed the difference in the pack as a result. So I've decided that like all packaging, or as much packaging as I can reduce, I'm taking out of my pack. So that includes stuff sacks, like all stuff sacks for everything. That includes packaging for freeze-dried meals. That includes packaging, even like heavier packaging just for snacks that you're bringing. If I can take all of that packaging out and consolidate it into like, a food bag for the day or whatever, I'm saving myself on like a 4 to 5 day trip. I'm saving myself about 12 to 13 ounces just from doing that. Useless things that does not change the quality of my trip. Is that something that you've done?
That's awesome. Like that's got my gears turning. I couldn't lose that much weight, but
Well, you freeze dry your own food, so that doesn't really apply in that circumstance.
right. I don't have a lot of packaging, and I'm a big fan of not stuffing the sleeping bag in a stuff sack. So, but I
Right.
have a stuff sack for all my clothes, which aren't much
Okay.
other than I'm wearing. I have a small stuff
Right.
sack for all my miscellaneous stuff, basically, that goes in
Okay.
a side pocket. And then I have it's not a stuff sack. This is actually an unconventional thing that I didn't think about. We used to use, the plastic bags they don't hardly give you anymore for grocery bags.
Right.
We used those in the early days to carry food, but they don't hold up very well. So I sewed myself one out of spinnaker fabric because it's, stuff sack. It's like you've got all the food in there and you've got a small hole and you're trying to like dig around and figure it out. The grocery bag, you open it up and you can kind of see everything.
Right.
And so that's my third kind of stuff sack, as you were, that I would have. But yeah, I could probably save a couple ounces in packaging. I'll have to give that some thought. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, and the food packaging weighs more than you think, and again, like the freeze dried is probably the heaviest of the packaging that I reduce, and that's where it really adds up. And then also, I'm talking, so you mentioned the sleeping bag, and then you get this sleeping pad, which you don't have the inflatable, and then people that bring the pillow like that, typically when you buy that comes with a stuff sack. And then it sounds like you don't bring a chair, but the chair's probably got the heaviest of all the stuff sacks, but I see people with that out there. And then people are like what you're suggesting for organizational purposes, they're buying the extra bags. And those bags don't individually weigh a lot, but it's more the cumulative effect of everything. And I will say that like this, I would say this is unorthodox because people will probably give up some of those stuff sacks, but the last thing they want to give up is those organizational bags, like your clothing bag or your food bag. Anytime I mention that, I get the most pushback on that. Like, I love this bag. I see the red bag, and that red bag means clothing, or the blue bag means food, or whatever. Some people go a little too far, and they have the cook bag, the poop bag. Like, they got, 10 bags in there. So, anyway, that's my unorthodox, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I like it. And the thing is, as you reduce your pack weight, if you're taking less items, that's less items to keep track of too. So it makes organization easier. And I would say the downside would be if you can't, like I was hiking with my buddy Reed once. He's kind of starting to mumble and stumble on stuff, and he's hypothermic. So, and he's looking for his gloves because it had gotten cold. We were like, he's looking for his gloves and he can't find them, so he hikes on, and then his hands are getting even colder, so he stops and he's rooting through looking for his gloves, but he's already hypothermic, so he's like, he can't see it. So finally I recognized what was going on. I go, here, give me your pack, and we're just going to take everything out and we're going to find your gloves. I could see potentially there would be cases where a little organization could be a good thing and worth the weight of the stuff sack. But in general, yeah, I like your idea of less. Yeah, it adds up. I remember Ryan Jordan, Backpacking Light, did something way back. He got on a thing like tags, like what tags weigh. And I forget, it wasn't a lot, but he did go through and cut like tags off everything.
And I will say, and just because I'm not using stuff sacks doesn't mean it's not organized. Like, it's very organized. And like you're saying, because you're simplifying, there's less things you're bringing. So for me, I did the collegiate loop last year, and so I had my rain jacket and my rain pants on the outside mesh of my pack. And so, like, they're ready to go when it starts raining or hailing or whatever. Inside my rain jacket are my gloves. I don't always bring gloves, but I did because we're in Colorado. And so I have the rain clothes ready to go, and that's it for clothes. Like, then if there's any extra socks or things, those are inside the pack, typically towards the bottom, because I'm going to need those last towards the end of the night. And then the food's still in bags. It's just in like Ziploc bags, and it's clustered together by day. So it's just kind of consolidated all. Yeah,
and that's a good point. Is organization can be grouping, but it can also be like where you put it.
Right.
Like you always put something in the same place.
Right.
This is an argument I have with my wife often.
With the keys?
No, well, I mean, I like things. With my desk, I have scissors, and they're always in the same place. And so when I need scissors, I know exactly where to go. For her, it's kind of random. Like when she's done with scissors, she just puts them down wherever. And so she often can't find her scissors, but she knows where there's always a pair of scissors, and that's in my drawer. And so, we've had things when the kids were home, like one would I'd yell out like, "Where are my scissors?" And one of the kids would like distract me, like, "Hey Dad, can you help me on homework or whatever?" And give her a chance to like sneak them back in and put them in my drawer. So
that's funny. Yeah. You know what? A few years ago, I actually, for Christmas, I bought all of my family members scissors. These are your scissors. Stop borrowing my scissors. These are yours. These are nice pairs of scissors. You can put them wherever you want. Stop grabbing mine. It didn't work.
For many years, like I would always get like 3 or 4 pairs of scissors and put them in Francie's Christmas stocking. And you can see like the kids are gone. These are my scissors in my drawer, and they're marked Dad's. Like, don't mess with these. It's like, these are my scissors.
I've probably invested in so many pairs of scissors right now, and still when I need them, I can't find them because they always get taken and put in weird spots. Gosh. So yeah, maybe that should be like an annual gift, and then we'll have like 30 pairs of scissors around the house, and that'll solve the problem.
You would think, but it won't.
It won't. All right, here. Okay, I got my idea, and I need your honest feedback. So if you think this is a horrific idea, feel free to share. Like, you won't offend me. But this is a brand new idea, folks. I've never run this by anybody in the podcast.
I'm honored.
Much less a gear company owner. So here we go. A trend in backpacking is the rise in the last couple of years of the pack ornaments. People are dangling things. They got pockets for their water bottles. They got the temperature gauges. They just have like lots of things, the camera clips on their shoulder straps dangling. You got the fanny packs around your waist. And so I'm going to tap into this trend with a pack ornament that is an air purifier. And so you can hang this off the back of your pack so that as you're hiking, if you happen to be gassy, it's going to absorb the gas so that you're not sabotaging the hikers behind you. Then when you get into camp, if you are the kind of person that shares a tent with somebody, which I am, you can hang it in the tent so that we can all breathe easier at night. And that saves you and your tent mate from having a rough night. What do you think about that?
Intriguing. The tech to bring that to fruition would be interesting.
You're an engineer, so if anybody could do it, you could, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as smart as most people assume. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like I'm pretty slow to add things to my pack. So I probably would not.
I'm not saying that you have to add it or that you have to use it because you don't. I don't. It doesn't sound like you should even share a tent with somebody. I'm just saying like this could be something that the Gossamer Gear sells for the people that are loving the pack ornaments.
We learned long ago, it's like you can't build a company on what I think is good gear because I have a saying when I come up with a new idea, kind of like you just came up with a new idea. Sometimes I'll bring them to the Gossamer Gear team, and the first question is, and this might be, a good question for you, is in our case, okay, are there 5 other people in the world besides Glenn who think this is a good idea? And oftentimes it's like, no, probably not. And so those products never make it to life. But occasionally I meet someone and, after we're talking and I'll go, you might be one of the 5, it's like you think about things like I think about things. But so, yeah, it's an idea that who knows, I don't think it's a great idea, but people have made a lot of money on ideas that I don't think are great ideas. So,
all right, well, I'm going to run this by Lloyd from Garage Go Gear. Hopefully he'll be on our show in the next couple months. He actually liked the tent catheter and said he would sell it on his site. I just have to manufacture it, and I'm not an entrepreneur, so that's not going to happen. So I just said anybody that wants to manufacture that, go for it. But he said that he would sell. We wouldn't be like a big seller, but that I would probably sell hundreds of those a year is what he said. But I haven't told him about the air purifier, so we'll see. We'll see if he agrees with you on that one.
With a clever name and some nice little graphics or something, you could probably sell a bunch of those.
I could come up with a name. I could come up with the graphics. I just don't want to talk to manufacturing plants and dealing with that. So anyway, throwing it out there, folks. Anybody wants to take that idea, go for it. It's now out and about. So
yeah, it could be a good like Christmas tree ornament too, just all sorts of multi-purpose. Yeah.
That's true. All right. I'm going to put Glenn through the lightning round right after this. All right.
This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
The lightning round is brought to you by Magnet Designs. Check out the Ultralight Alpha Joggers, one of their best sellers. They can be used as camp pants, a base layer, or even pajama pants, and they only weigh between 3 and 6 ounces. Check out these popular joggers that come in men and women's cuts by Googling Magnet Designs. All right, Glenn, you got 1 minute to answer as many questions as you can. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, timer starts after I ask the first question. Least favorite dishwashing task?
Ocean roll pans. The sugar gets baked on.
The best kind of bread?
Sourdough.
Your biggest outdoor fear?
Probably cold.
Something that makes you yell out in anger?
Nothing.
Nothing. Favorite national park?
Yosemite.
The last nightmare you had?
Last nightmare was a plane crash.
A backpacking brand you trust besides Gossamer Gear?
Montbell.
Backpack solo or with a group of 7?
Yes.
Favorite movie of all time?
Pretty Woman.
And time. Okay, wow, you did really well. Let's see. I think you get definitely hit above average there. You got 9. Average is 7 to 8, so well done.
Great.
Let's see here. You liked Montbell. What do you bring in your pack that's Montbell?
I have the Montbell Plasma 1000 jacket.
So what do you think that the plane crash nightmare represents?
Well, I was in a plane crash.
That's right, yeah.
Recently, someone recommended the series The Madison.
Okay.
The first episode they die in a plane crash in Montana, I think.
Like the main characters?
Well, there's flashbacks. That's I'm thinking like, well, I don't know how much what's his name got paid because it's like he's out now, but there's there's lots of flashbacks to when they were married, and his wife gets a call, like my wife got a call. So yeah, it was after we watched that episode that I had
Okay. Oh, so that episode just kind of spurred on these memories. You're saying so that was a recent nightmare then.
Yeah.
So yeah. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that? So was this a commercial plane or was this like a private small plane?
Private small plane. We had flown up for a leadership seminar up in Northern California, and we're flying back, and like we're big shots, in a private plane, blah, blah. We stopped in San Francisco and, had dinner on the wharf, and we're headed back to Orange County. I think the winds aloft were more than the pilot had calculated for. He was a relatively new pilot, but he'd been married 6 months, and he died in the crash. So that was one thing. After the crash, he's trying to land at an airport that's an uncontrolled airport. It's a small private field, and you had to click your transponder to turn the lights on, and he couldn't find the right frequency, and he missed a couple houses, which was good. Came in through some trees that took the wings off. Landed pretty hard. And then they called my wife, and she was pregnant with our second son, who was the one that turned out to be severely disabled. Didn't know that at the time. And they wouldn't tell her if I was alive or dead. They just said, there's been a plane crash. You need to get to the hospital up in Orange County, and you should bring someone with you. And said, we don't know who's dead, who survived, whatever. Wow. You just need to get up here. So, she had to drive up there pregnant, not knowing if I was alive or not.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, that must have been a rough, a couple hours for your wife. And
the direct result after that was, thinking about this guy who'd been married 6 months, I don't know how he left his new wife. And so it made me appreciate that, life is not guaranteed. And so, I make careful attention every time I leave my wife to say, I love you. Cause there's some non-zero chance that those might be the last words I say to her. So,
and it's interesting because I imagine that happened years and years ago. And so, but even just like a TV show like that can kind of bring it back just like that.
Yeah, it was yeah.
Well, appreciate you playing along with the lightning round. I got a couple tidbits for this episode. Thanks to the latest reviews, we've got somebody called Anonymous Reviewer, and then one of my current students reviewed. And so I typically will send out the limited edition Backpacking Blister stickers. I already gave them to my student, so thanks to my student. I don't advertise that I've got a podcast in class, so he just happened to find it, which is awesome. But Glenn, you wanted to you made an offer. You're willing to give out one of your. Well, first of all, can you tell us about your books? And you're willing to give out a couple free ones for the next people that either review our show or subscribe to our podcast.
Sure. Yeah. I wrote a book. Actually, your previous guest, John Mackey, kind of pestered me into it over.
Oh, really?
Probably over about 10 years. Okay. We'd be hiking and he'd say, Glenn, you've thought a lot about going ultralight. You got to write a book.
Yeah.
And I said, nah, plenty of people have written books on ultralight backpacking. I don't think I need to add my 2 cents. But he kept pestering me, and then he'd tell his friends, and I'd be walking with one of his friends on a hike, and they'd say, hey, John tells me you're writing a book. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like, he told me, Glenn, you write the book, I'll write the foreword. I had a realization that it doesn't have to be about backpacking. I realized that a lot of the lessons I learned while getting down to a 5-pound base back weight had applications in the rest of life. The book is about kind of applying the lessons I learned in lightening my load to the rest of life. There's one chapter kind of that's backpacking centric, but the rest of it is just stories and lessons applied to life.
All right. And what's the book called?
Take Less, Do More.
Okay.
Surprising life lessons in generosity, gratitude, and curiosity from an ultralight backpacker.
All right. And we'll have that linked in our show description. for those that are not fortunate enough to win that with a Apple Podcast review, Spotify review, or subscriber, you just got to send the address. I found that with giveaways, that's the hardest part, is like, even for winners, like they're just like very reluctant, or they ignore my emails. So send your address to qualify, and and then we'll get that out to you. So thank you for offering that.
Sure.
Last thing I got is if you want to join our B&B Bible Study, we've got that monthly for the next couple months, and we're going to go weekly during the summertime. And Glenn, you might even show up to one of these at some point. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. I can't make the next one, but yeah, no.
Okay.
Totally into that.
All right. So that you might get a chance to meet Glenn himself as well. All right. Well, Glenn, thank you so much for taking the time to join our show. It's been a pleasure and an honor to hang out with you, my friend.
Likewise. Been an honor.
And remember, if you want to be an entrepreneur like Glenn, check out the landfill industry. It's a growing field. Have a good week, and God bless.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.